today's episode, how to make a stopped sliding dovetail. So before we get going, I want to start off by thanking the Crystalac company for sponsoring this video. Now, Crystalac makes top coat stains and paints that are low or no VOC, which means it's healthier for you and healthier for the environment. Now, I just finished building a table that not only has the stop sliding dovetail on it, but it also is completely finished with all the Crystalac products on it, and it came out beautiful. I'll give you a sneak peek of that at the end of the video. But for now, let's take a look at what a stop sliding dovetail is and why you should add this to your woodworking skills. So here's a sample piece of my stop sliding dovetail. And on this here, which would be the leg, it has the socket of it. And then coming in on a rail, I have the dovetail that slides in, and you can see it stops. Now, the advantages of this joint are that back in the day when they didn't have much access to glue, this would be a means of doing in replacement of a mortise and tenon. It would go together and it could be very strong and wouldn't pull apart. However, today we have glue that's so accessible, why would you build a project without any? Now, many times this joint is made by using a router bit and router table. However, I find this limiting for two reasons. One, well, if I want to make the socket bigger or the dovetail bigger, it's not a big deal. However, if I want to make it smaller, well, that requires me buying more bits. The other thing is, each one of these bits comes at its own preset angle, which might limit me in some applications. So now let me walk you through the steps that I do to make a stop sliding dovetail without the use of the router table. So this is the rail that's going on the table, and I'm just using a marking gauge to scribe off the depth and the length that I want the dovetail to be. In this case, the dovetail is going to be about 3/4 of an inch wide and roughly 3/4 of an inch deep. Now, this is my dovetail marking gauge that I like to use. If you don't have one of these, you can just use a bevel and make your own angle for your dovetail. You want to make sure that you do this on both ends of your piece. I'm using a chip carving knife, and I like to scribe it a little bit deeper, and then what I do is I remove some of the waste. I'm making a trench that will accept my saw, and this will help me cut straight down the line. And of course, it's just merely cutting down to the bottom end there of the dovetail. I'll use a chisel at this point to remove a lot of the waste to reveal the dovetail. I use the chisel to get really close to that pencil line, and then I will clean it up with a shoulder plane. It's really important that at the bottom of that dovetail, I want those corners nice and clean. So I'll go back in with the chisel to remove any kind of waste that I might have missed. And then of course, I'll flip it over and do the exact same procedure to the other side. Having made the full dovetail, now I need to establish how deep I want it to be going into the socket. So I'm marking off the material that's going to be the waste, and this just simply gets cut off. All right, at this point I have the leg, and I'm going to be placing the rail on top. I'm going to trace out the dovetail onto the top of the leg. This will be forming what will be the socket. Now you'll notice that I have these pencil lines going down the center of the dovetail, and you can see it's offset some from the leg. So I did this just so I simply have a place to line them up. After I trace it with a pencil, I like to go back in with a knife and score around it as well. And then that is the area that's going to be removed to make the socket. Now I've already established the depth going down on the socket. I also, if you notice, I used my chip carving knife to get a place for my saw to start. That way it's very important for me to start cutting on the waist side of that line. I do not want to be on the wrong side. Otherwise the socket will be too big and the dovetail will fit in there sloppy and loose. Now I can keep sawing and using my chisels to remove this waste, but I have a faster method. Over on the drill press, I've picked a drill bit that is the size of the smallest part of the dovetail, the bottom end of it. And with the drill press, I'm going to just hog out and remove most of the waste in there. This makes it so much faster and easier to clean up. Now with my chisels, I'll go through and remove the waste that the drill press didn't do to reveal my dovetail socket. And now the moment of truth. Actual fitting of the stopped sliding dovetail. Not too shabby. So that is how I make a stopped sliding dovetail. Now I used it on a recent table that I built, and the reason for it is the leg was kind of small and thin, and I felt using two mortise and tenons on it that the tenons would intersect and they would be very short in length. So by using the sliding stopped dovetail, I can get the strength on one end of it, which allowed me to go below that dovetail socket and get a much deeper tenon on the side rails, giving me a very strong table in the end. And as you can see from this little photo clip here, that I've used the high gloss black on the bottom half and the clear gloss on top, both of which are Crystalac products, making this piece one stunning table to look at. If you're on Facebook and you would like to join in on our little group, well, we have a private page called What Are You Doing?, where people get to show off the projects that they're making, and they even get a chance to ask some questions. And speaking of questions, if you have any problems in your shop and would like some answers, feel free to email me at woodchoppingtime@gmail.com. Because after all, my whole goal is to make you a better woodworker. Until next time, thanks so much for watching and keep on dancing.